Go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast episode. Today, I'm with Marlies Cocheret. And so, Marlies is someone, again, who's very dear to my heart and has helped me a lot along my journey. So, it's a great privilege to have her here and hear what she has to say on all of these topics. So, welcome, Marlies.
Well, wonderful to be here with you and everyone here.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
you're very welcome. So, I thought we could just start with a little bit about you, what you do, and how you came into this kind of work and a little bit about your journey.
Okay, where shall I start? Um, well, I think I knew when I was very little, I knew I wanted to help people. I just knew that, and I didn't really think so much what it looked like, but that's what I knew. I wanted to help people. And it kind of started when I was young, going to the neighbors and helping out with things. That made me always intense happy for some reason. And my childhood was challenging, as is for both, for all of us, both of us, all of us, really. I think even being born is already a challenge. Just to pop out here on planet Earth and see where we landed. But I would say my childhood, my parents took care of us in the way there was food and there was care. Just the basic care was there, and there was also quite some neglect, and not out of meanness, but just out of, I was born and raised in Amsterdam, so my parents were in the war, and my father was a Jew, so most of his family had died. So both my parents were pretty traumatized, and I think we as children were affected by that. And our parents wanted us to be really independent, really independent. So that's a great idea, but it started a little bit too early. So they wanted us very early on already go to the store, when we're 3 years old or so and do things. And so it was a little extreme. And I remember one day, years ago, because my parents died many, many years ago, talking with my father about it. And he mentioned how he and my mom really chose to, you know, letting us grow up, being very independent. And I said, I think it was a little bit too early for independence. So I would say certain qualities of natural needs were not met, and there was a form of neglect because, we had to do it alone. And then you get a sense, well, I can do it, but of course, the system as a little girl's too young and then collapses.
Mm.
So I would say fasting forward, because I don't want to spend a long time on this. I was also born with a kidney disease, and of which actually my mom died, and also my sister died of. And so that definitely affected me very, very much. And so I was easily tired, even though simultaneously I was also a top athlete in field hockey, but I needed to nap every afternoon, etc., etc. So that was a big thing to live then with a kidney disease. And so from very, very early on, I knew there was something wrong here, how we were living our lives. And I was on a search since very young. I didn't quite know what I was looking for, but I called it it. And I knew when I would find it that I would know it. And so I went to churches, but that was not it. I went to the shul, that was not it. Temples, you name it. I went everywhere. And then I got this book in my hands of, I think it was called De Weg van de Witte Wolk, The Way of the White Cloud, I think it's called in English, by Bhagwan, Rajneesh Osho.
Um,
And when I saw that and it was talked about enlightenment, I had like, that's it. That's what I want. I didn't even quite know what it meant. So then I went actually kind of overnight. I just left Amsterdam, rented out my space. I went to India in my early 20s and was with Bhagwan. That was his name then. Now it's Osho. And the moment I sat down, I was home for the first time in my life. And I knew this is it. This is what I've been looking for. And of course, that was the first um, gate opening. And then, of course, when that first awakening happened, I mean, the garbage can opened up
Mhm.
big time.
Yeah.
So I had the luck that in the ashram then in Pune, there were not so many people. So I just basically collapsed for a certain amount of time because finally there was a space where I could let go. So there were therapists there and workshops and meditations and you name it, it was there. And yeah, my mom had already died. My father almost passed then also. But I remember I had a surrogate mom, an Indian woman in the ashram who cared for me. But I would do different Zen retreats actually in the ashram. And they were just so helpful. And that was led then by a guy called Prashantam. I think originally he was a Portuguese, a monk from Portugal that left the monastery and was in the ashram also. And he helped me tremendously. And so I would do 5 or 6 day groups with him. I think he called them Kyo groups. And we would just sit in Zen, Zazen.
Mhm.
Also do a lot of meditation and Zazen, but also movement and Qigong and everything. And then sometimes he would ask me to lead the group in Qigong. And I literally, it's kind of dramatic. I would just fall on the floor. I couldn't stay up, you know? And I was just crying and crying and crying. And it was just so nice. Nobody telling me to stop crying. I was just letting go of all this grief and trauma and pain. And, sometimes we would do exercises laying down and just, a moment before I would burst into tears, Prashantam would come and put his hand around my head and say, it's okay, Ma. All the women were called Ma. It's okay, Ma. And boom. So the garbage can was opened and the garbage could leave me. And I felt I was there for a year and I felt so emptied of all that was not me within so much love and care. And I think that's really one of the main things in working with trauma is when we work, let's say, as a therapist, which I work also, I'm trained in the Netherlands at the University of Amsterdam as a psychologist. And then later in America, I became a Hakomi therapist, that is a body centered somatic psychotherapy method. And but I think one of the main ingredients of working with someone, with anybody really, but especially with trauma, and we all have trauma,
Yeah.
is the intimate relationship. As a therapist, to dare, really to dare, to be tender and fierce in a loving relationship with your client and not pretend you're above them, you know it all, because you don't. And there's something special because I remember learning in the university a lot like, I know more than my client.
Mhm.
And it's really nonsense. The client, the person I work with, knows more about themselves than I, right? So that's, I think, the number one thing I learned in Pune then in India is just the presence, the love, the steady presence, and true relationship, intimacy. So I could feel that, like Prashantam and others, they were intimate with themselves. And because of that, they could be intimate with me and could fully, fully receive me, no matter, what they thought about me. I could feel it. I could be anybody who I was. And I feel as a therapist, that is a big invitation for being a therapist, to dare to rest as your nature, as presence, and feel that intimacy with yourself in your body, no matter what is here. And through that, being with your client and be real. Yeah, because when we work with people, we don't know it all. And it's so powerful when we can acknowledge, like, when a client asks me something and I don't know, and I say, oh, I don't know. Let's see, but let's find out together. So you go really on a journey together, and that whoever is in front of me or you is not here. I'm not here to fix this person. I'm here to join this person on the journey, on their journey, on our journey together. And that really, I feel, takes courage, which means, courage comes from le cœur, the heart, courage. It takes courage to really be tender as a therapist. And as I said before, to be fierce. So I feel that kind of got instigated, put in me over there. And then after that, I came in contact with Barry Long, who was an Australian. He
Uh,
called himself the Tantra teacher of the West or something,
yeah,
or
okay.
the master or whatever. And I was with Barry. I actually went also to Australia to be with him, with, as they call it then, the master session. I loved Barry. He was completely the opposite of Bhagwan. And but what I loved about him was the clear boundaries and really helping us to rest as our nature, no matter what happens, and come into your body. And then when you are in female form, he supported the women very, very much to trust yourself as a woman and don't give yourself away to somebody else. And so Barry helped me very much to ground that wakefulness in the body, together really with Charles and Caroline Muir. They are Tantra teachers in Neo Tantra teachers here in America. But then I feel with Adyashanti, who asked me to teach in the year 2000. Yeah, gosh, this is already 25 years ago. I feel with Adya, the bottom fell out. I feel I just fell in all the way. And I feel since then, the gift was given of really embodiment. I got more and deeper understanding what embodiment really is in my experience, not somebody talking about it. And I feel that's really what I help people with is, of course, to wake up to your true nature. And that happens, it's a spontaneous happening. And then there's a whole process of abiding and embodiment.
Mm,
But so in that way, but also not to forget your humanity, just that immense tenderness, that hurt that happens, when we are harmed, when we get traumatized, when this trauma body, um, so-called, comes to life, is created, because that's not you, that's not me. So I feel awakening, of course, is an important ingredient in the whole trauma, coming to wholeness, stepping out of the trauma story and stepping out of the trauma nervous system. And I'm not saying the trauma story is not important, it's very important. And it's also important to let it go. Yeah. And the same with the trauma story is connected, as I call it, with the nervous system. And then we need to come to a place that we can leave this behind by working with the body, working with the story, working with the mind, with the heart. And then we can choose, because we have a choice in every moment, where do we rest our attention? And then to learn to rest that in, as I call it, the Eros system, the system of atonement, alignment, of wholeness. It's a whole. Eros is, for me, means aliveness, to come into the alive body. Because when we're in the nervous system, we all know that it's fight, flight, freeze, fawn. We are in that, we're not ourselves. When we're in the Eros system, the system of aliveness, then you are more and more coming yourself. You come to life, literally. And so that's what I kind of, that's so everything I do is fueled by my own experience. Everything, how I work with people. Yes, I had trauma training and so on, but I really do, Marlies, really. It's all together. I have all my tools here on my shelf behind me, but really, I connect with me, with my source, and connecting my source, connecting with the source, the heart of the person in front of me. And then we go on a journey together and see what wants to unfold in the moment, not something I learned. It's handy to have things here that I learned, but the main thing I learned is the simpler, the better.
Yeah.
The simpler, the better. It's just connecting, just being here together, laughing also together, having fun. Because in trauma, we all know that you so easily you come into this groove of that life is hard, and it is hard. There's a lot of suffering, not to be denied, but something needs to break, and laughter, or really orienting to goodness and pleasure and delight, can be challenging for somebody that has a lot of trauma, because we're so used to be in this groove, and like pleasure, that's almost like danger zone.
Mm.
Or goodness is like, no, how can I feel goodness when I have so much pain? And we need to break that open. And they actually found now also more and more in research how important it is to help people to feel goodness, to feel pleasure, delight, to look around, because when in trauma we get kind of blinded, right? It gets a little narrow, so we need to learn to breathe and open up and see that there's more than a trauma body. So I think that's really the first thing I think that I guess came out. And I think one other thing that is really big in my story, life story, is so yeah, around the kidney. So I had a kidney transplant, which was the most amazing experience of beauty and the most amazing experience of horror simultaneously. Because I didn't only receive a new kidney, I the illness I had, the kidneys grow. So my kidneys were like huge. Yeah, they were 3 pounds each. They were huge. They're like this big. So I looked pregnant. I felt pregnant with myself. So I was cut open. All the organs were taken out, and then the kidneys were taken out. So that was trauma of the highest order. So
Yeah. Wow.
that has been, I would say, the most challenging journey for me, because the harm in my body was just not of this world. I felt I went deeply, completely deeply into hell, into the underworld. Before, when you have a kidney disease, you kind of slowly die. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's a big of a deal, but you just slowly die. There's not much pain, there's not much discomfort. You just get more and more tired, you sleep more, and you kind of like, okay, well, we can go under. But with this was like, you know,
Um,
felt like a slash hammer that was so sharp and hard and painful. Yeah. So it took me about 7 years to get over that and did a lot of trauma therapy also, etc., etc. But yeah, the awakening aspect in that journey for me with working with the trauma and softening and softening and softening into my body
yeah,
has been incredible.
yeah.
Yeah.
When I feel like I know you quite well now, we've known each other for a number of years, but as soon as we sat down, like, and you started talking, I started getting tears, 'cause it's
Mm,
that exactly what you're talking about, that presence and attuned relationship that, you've held for me. It just kind of can feel the heart open, and
mm,
that's exactly what you were saying, the key to effective trauma therapy, because the traumas are, 99% of the time relational, but and then bringing that presence and attunement into the relationship, and as soon as I sit with you, I feel the awakeness kind of intensify in the field. And so to just for our listeners, so those traumas, because there's a lot of delusion around awakening and what it means, like that it's some big event that just ends your suffering and you can't be traumatized and you kind of transcend your humanity. And I think Adyashanti says you hoist your enlightenment flag and you're done.
yeah. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, well, it
Yeah.
would. you know and so all of these experiences that you're talking about, and that kind of big shock, with the kidney thing, like it sounds massive, to have your body go through something to that degree, and then the surgeries, like levels of invasivity, like into the body, and you still experience that the whole time, but it sounds like you never abandoned your humanity for some transcendent realm, which is available, but it's like a piece of the pie, it's one little
Yes.
fragment of what we can potentially experience.
Yeah. And it's understandable when it depends how your awakening is, as many people, as many awakenings. And some people have more awakening, like immediately out the body,
So,
just being in outer space, and
yeah,
who
yeah,
wouldn't want to be there? I mean, it's wonderful. Or some people have awakening of the heart more, this quality of union. Yeah, of course, who wouldn't want to be there either? And then some of us, start first with awakening really of the core of your body is deeper than your body, of course, but really waking up to your ground, to this silence that is unfathomable.
yeah, yeah.
And so, but all of those forms of awakening need to be realized. And I feel life gives us these wonderful gifts in not the most fun wrapping paper, but it all helps us to really come home if that's your heart wish. If your heart wish is to be awakened and live the awakened life or enlightenment or what a word you
People
also
could call it
want to.
like wanting to know God, like, or wanting to know the
Exactly.
source, or,
Yeah,
and it just shows up. It doesn't matter the language or the context, but it's the same
yeah,
longing, And so
absolutely.
that was my experience, where it's like woke up to this immensity. It's like an immense immensity. That's all I could call it. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't have any
Yeah,
context, never read any
yeah,
books, just like boom. And it was very disorienting, like I remember um sitting in a park and I could feel everyone's feet on the ground over there. It's like I'd left the content of my individuality and became the context. And it's like I could feel the moon was happening inside of my own awareness, or I was one with
yeah,
that spaciousness that was prior to manifestation. And but it was kind of dissociative, like
yeah.
because my
Yeah.
body
Yeah.
was just separate. Like it was no association with it really. And similar to you, it wasn't long before the gates of hell kind of opened up and I was forced back into my body.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Like, no,
yeah,
no. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But in a way, you could almost say, that big awakening that you had is amazing, but it's almost like a shock to the system too.
Oh, yeah, it can be
And then,
traumatizing.
yeah, and then coming back in the body is another kind of shock
Yeah,
to the system.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Especially without context, because the mind doesn't know what's happening. It feels like there's loss of agency and loss of control. And then, it's I remember feeding my son when he was just born, like he just started on foods, and I was looking at him, and my son disappeared, and then it was like I experienced it as like the divine recognizing itself. My son disappeared, and it was just pure being feeding
Mm,
itself, and terror came up. It felt like reality was just flipping on its head, like not knowing what's real. And I thought he's going to be feeding me my medication in the psych ward in
yeah.
a few days, like. And so it can be hugely shocking, especially if
Yeah.
it's a deep awakening really quickly without any kind of practice or preparation. And then it's like
Yes.
it went boom outwards. But then it's like the whole universe then went boom inwards, and started to try and fully embody itself into the
Yeah.
human. And so, working with you and a few other guides, helped me to kind of learn to soften into that and regulate. And
Yeah.
still I have difficulties, especially in
Yeah.
relationships with people.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a relationship, we can see how much along we have gotten.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that's always so humbling to see, like, oh, I'm doing really well. And you can feel there's something more settling. And then you're in relations like, okay, I think I need to go and look a little deeper in myself. I
yeah,
also want to speak to, as I said earlier, there's so many kinds of awakening. So you have, I call it, this is kind of how I call it. You have like a Big Bang awakening. So you're kind of a Big Banger, so to speak. I'm not. I call myself a slipper inner. So I just slipped in. I
yeah,
didn't have a Big Bang. I just slipped in and into just eternal bliss, basically. But it was not that long, but my life completely changed. So I also want to speak that for the audience because people hear of these big awakenings like Eckhart Tolle and just you name it. And but a lot of people just slip in and they're not even aware that something opened up. And because otherwise you start striving for something
yeah,
that's not in the cards for you. For you, it's in the cards. It looks very, very different.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then, some people are more contemplatives and some people are more mystics. And it's just a different kind of experience and
yeah,
to not compare
yeah,
because awakening is awakening. And of course, it's very, very interesting to write a book about a Big Bang. It's less interesting to write a book about, oh, I just slipped in and I had bliss. And then
yeah,
my life continued.
yeah,
So I want to mention that
for
for
sure. And when you
anybody.
when you say that, it's kind of like part of me is like, I think I would have rathered like slipping in, like it was the difficulty integrating like the reality flipping on its head, the trauma of it compacted on the trauma that I already had. Like it wasn't
Yes,
ideal, So
yes,
flipping
yes,
in sounds like, oh, that sounds much nicer,
yes,
Um,
yes. I totally hear you.
yeah, but
Yeah,
I've worked with people, and pe people think that Big Bang thing is what they want, but no, not necessarily. But
right.
I've worked with people who have, just slipped in without even recognizing it because it's just been so subtle. This spaciousness kind of comes into their experience, and first it might come as just tastes of it, but not really recognizing what it is. But then over time, it just kind of integrates itself, and then they're like,
Yes,
something happened and I don't know when, I
yes.
can't put my finger on it. And
Yeah.
Sounds like a nicer way to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 But so, post the shift, because it's really a shift in identity, that happens whether
Yes.
gradually or
Yes.
spontaneously. Post that shift in identity where we recognize, our unity with the divine or, our essential being or, pure silence, whatever we want to call it. Um, the work doesn't stop there, like it's like,
Yeah.
especially if we are called to deepen into embodiment. We have to, like many people are forced. I know I was into trauma and somatic work. It's, I had no choice but to do it because it was just unbelievably painful, too painful
Mm.
not to.
Yes, exactly. In Zen, they talk about 10 steps to enlightenment. Step 3 is awakening.
Yeah.
And it's really this idea when awakening has happened, then you really go and sit on your cushion and deepen in this true identity and in your real identity, not the real ID that they're talking about now in the world, not that one, but your true identity, the I am of the divine that you are, or as you also said, the silence that you are, the spaciousness that you are, those are words all really point to it.
Mm.
But then it's like learning to abide. And that's really the most amazing journey to meet your humanity and your divinity and meet the trauma parts, all those parts that are not you and that helped you so-called to survive and to basically let them go, fire them. But you cannot just fire them. We need to, I feel always it takes like radical kindness, radical willingness, radical, it's radical to be willing to meet our traumas because often there's so much fear to feel and experience it because we put it under also because it was so horrific, it was so painful. And now you need to feel it. But the difference now is when you work with this, and I'm sure you know this too, when you work as a therapist and you have awoken to your nature, then your presence is an incredible gift to your client. You're already a gift to your client to be there to. But when you as a therapist rest as your nature, as your true identity, as silence, it's like in that ocean you welcome in your client, the person that comes right in front of you. And just you being regulated, so to speak, naturally your client starts already regulating before you have even done anything officially.
Yeah.
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 And that I feel it's coming in now, but in trauma work, that's not always mentioned. And to me, that is the base of what I offer is I rest here at home. No matter what happens in my life, no matter what happens here in front of me. And then we create this resonant field together, this field of silence. Even if the client doesn't really know what's happening, they know something is happening, but they don't know what it is, unless awakening has happened for them. Yeah. And then it's kind of step by step work with the trauma in the body and then really use the body. So then it becomes, in my world, very delicate. How much do you step in that trauma and how much do you step out? So it really needs to go bite size. So working with the trauma in the body. So let's say there's a lot of pain in the body. So letting the client really take time to experience the sensations. Yeah. And then look around, or rest back or connect
Mhm.
so that we relax, and then another bite, and then resting back.
Yeah.
When everybody knows that probably the titrating, but
Undulate.
yes, so that resting, when that's the core, then to me, sessions go, or you could say healing or coming to wholeness goes way faster than when we just only are busy to calm the nervous, do this, do that, because there's more. There's more than just the flesh. There's more than the trauma in the flesh, the trauma in the mind, the trauma in the heart, in our emotional body. There is no trauma impossible in your nature. Your
Mm.
nature is untouched. And when people start getting that, then more and more they can rest back, literally have their backs touching the back of the chair and like, okay, bring it on. Let myself experience what my body is experiencing. I'm safe. The ultimate safety is silence, is my nature. And when there is the resonance field between us together, then it's easier to rest, to calm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's like, when we rest back in our nature, we can leave all of that behind. And I remember thinking to myself, I found a part of myself that was never traumatized, never
Yeah.
by anything. And the teachings I was following at the time were just like, don't go back.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but over time, like to learn to include this, it's like deeply humbling, because it's like to include the aspect of myself that, felt broken and hurt and
Yes.
fearful and terrified. And like you said, bite-sized pieces to come back and feel both at the same time, to feel kind of like the big self holding the little self, like a mother,
Yeah.
holding a
Yes.
baby, like to let my little self feel that spacious
Yeah.
presence
Yeah.
of the big universal self, and
Yeah.
let them slowly come together, and to be
Yeah.
able to hold both rather than split my experience into parts and this is
Yes.
a process, even
Yeah.
today. Um,
Absolutely.
and that gives that capacity for greater intimacy, greater presence, greater connection. And it's,
Yeah.
that capacity for surrender and allowing,
Yeah.
what's here
Yeah.
to be.
Allowing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Allowing.
Very much so. And I feel, you know, I think I speak for you too. We both have big traumas.
Yeah.
And just for me, in my humanity, to go through, for instance, with the surgery, it was a 10 or 11-hour surgery and coming out in hell, basically.
Mm,
Um, just to really experience like I'm completely out of control.
mm,
The amount of pain is like off the chart. The amount of rage is off the chart.
yeah.
It's like nothing was kind of normal anymore. Everything was like off the chart. I just because of the harm that had happened and they gave me prednisone and I had said I don't want it. But when you're so out of it and take all these pills, I never take pills. And all of a sudden I have a meal of pills in the morning, a meal of pills in the afternoon. And I had like, I need to do anything to get off these pills. And prednisone, it's a steroid, makes you crazy in your head. I just want to kill everyone, not
Yeah.
everyone, but a lot. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
felt the nastiness inside me. And gosh, that was so freeing to just let that rip. It was
Yeah.
terrible for people around me, but it's so humbling. Or that
Yeah.
ultimate tenderness, like the pain is so excruciating. There's nothing I can do. There's no choice of surrender. Surrendering just happens.
Yeah.
There's not, oh God, let's surrender here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all these parts of being completely humbled and seeing I mean, in a way, I knew that, but not to this extent. Like, I have nothing to say here.
Yeah.
I can't even be so-called resting as presence. It's a joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, and to just be humble to the ground.
Yeah.
And that's such an incredible gift to experience,
Yeah.
because then I don't really care what anybody comes with. I I didn't before, but then really I didn't. It's like if I can get through this,
Yeah.
I then it will be fine. But then there came also such deep trust of that all was well also, because there was this interesting experience of hell and suffering, because there's also this idea when you're awake. I think you mentioned it in the beginning, there's no suffering. There's suffering.
Hmm.
To
Yeah.
me, there's a difference between necessary suffering and unnecessary suffering. Obviously, in the world, there's a lot of unnecessary suffering, but I feel this was very necessary suffering, what I went through.
Mm.
And that helped me to completely melt. I was already pretty much melted, but nothing really.
Mm.
I just melted completely in the arms of the mother. And just to experience that, it's like, it's an incredible gift. It's
Yeah.
such a gift. Oh, yeah, this is what I want to say, because what was one of the beauties, in one way, there is incredible suffering. In another way, there was a new kidney given, and I could feel the new life of that kidney.
Wow.
That was amazing. So I felt pain, incredibly tired from an 11-hour surgery. I felt new life, like, holy moly, that's new life. And then I felt bliss. So it was like everything was there, and it was alternating left, right, up, down. But it was such a gift because I was just pushed into total radical willingness and compassion. There was no choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cornered. Checkmate.
Cornered.
Yeah, that's right.
Checkmate. That's
Checkmate.
it.
That surrender, we can surrender to a capacity, but like true
Yeah.
surrender is more like we fall on the floor and the ground then opens up and we fall through. Like I used to say it's
Yeah.
like in a hall of mirrors and everywhere you step, you smack your head, until you just
Yeah.
collapse on the ground. I can't do it. And then a trap door opens and you're out. Like, you
Yes.
get that
Yes.
point of utility over and over again.
Yeah.
Then surrender.
Yeah.
Surrender
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
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 But it's
Yeah.
beautiful to hear, that like just the raw humanness of it. I remember hearing a story about the Dalai Lama, and he was giving a talk on stage, and some some of his lamas came and whispered something in his ear, and they told him that some of his nuns had been like murdered by the Chinese and tortured, and he was on stage in front of thousands of people and just broke down crying, like in grief, and he stopped sobbed for however long he sobbed for. I imagine it was a while. And Jen just looked up at the audience with these beaming eyes, like just full of love, like and compassion. And it kind of goes against the idea of, spirituality and no suffering, like,
Right. I think
so
spirituality a lot. Sorry, you
just
go.
is so
Yeah.
undefended and cracked open and human,
Yes. Yes.
it's
That's it.
yeah,
Yeah. 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 This is such a beautiful story you're sharing, because I had this idea myself in my 20s, enlightenment, I won't feel anything anymore. I will be fine. There will no suffering. It will be all
yeah,
cool. And in one way, it is all cool. And also, in my experience, it is all cool in a way, because I'm fine feeling what I'm feeling. I'm fine what the experience is here. Whatever is here, it's yes. There's not that layer on top anymore. It's like, well, I shouldn't be feeling this, or it should be different, or no, I'm not going to do this, da, da, da. That's gone. That overlay is gone. And that's where you come into living really the direct experience of life. And I think that's also important to know as a therapist when you work with someone, or when you're with a friend, how much can you allow your own experience, but also how much can you allow your client to have their experience
Mm.
and not have this sense that you need to fix them? Because truly, nobody is broken. Nobody really is broken. And when you know that in your heart, there's something that happens that you just know, I'm just here in relation with
Yeah.
whomever is here and fully receive them where they're at. And what a gift to receive.
Comes
There's
back to
nothing to
that.
fix.
Sorry, that comes
Yes,
that allowing, allowing. Because if we're
yes,
trying to fix it, it's like self-defeating because the part of us that wants to fix it is being driven by the part of it that think there's something wrong with the experience
yeah,
and reaffirms that there's something wrong with the experience. So it
yeah,
becomes this self-perpetuating loop of
yeah,
suffering.
yeah,
So our orientation is more to, I want to say yes to this experience, just as you said, in bite-sized pieces, to
yeah,
learn to experience this. It's a
yeah,
different orientation to, I need to fix or get rid of this, which is
yes.
actually just a rejection of it.
It is. And that's mostly how we trained in this world. There's no time to experience what you're experiencing. It's about how can I fix this? When somebody has something, they Google it. They don't even feel like, oh, what's actually my experience? And while we are talking, I'm just kind of thinking what is helpful for people to hear. And one thought I had was, what is trauma really? Because we all talk about trauma, but what do we really mean with that? I can say what I mean with it. To me, it means like something happened in your life that was too fast. And wait, now I'm losing myself.
Okay.
Um, that's too fast, too much, and not with my consent.
Mm.
That's for me what trauma is. Too fast, too much, not with my consent.
You look at it,
It's
how much
very, very.
like category, like, you know,
Pardon? Say that again.
so many things fall in that category, as you say.
Yeah, yeah. And when I heard one of my teachers say that, Kim, she's one of my trauma teachers, I was like, gosh, that's so, how do you say that? Simple, so clear, so simple. That covers it all.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah,
like the overwhelm of something, it's like, and it's felt viscerally, so it's everyone knows that experience through their body of
yes,
too much, to
yeah,
hand. And, life can just throw that at us, it
yeah,
doesn't have to be some, what most people would think of as trauma, some really significant acute event. And the heartbreaking part of it is like when we have had those kind of repeated experiences, we become really sensitized and even little things end up
um,
being too
yeah,
much.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I was working today with someone and just kind of speaking about the simplicity. I've been working with this person for many years, and I remember when he came for the first time, he couldn't even make a full sentence.
Mm.
And now, of course, a lot of work we have done. And today he was kind of sensing something had happened. He's like, well, something happened. There's a lot of discomfort. So, well, what is that discomfort? We all know the word discomfort, but what does that mean for you right now? So we went in the body. How's that experienced right now? Yeah, in my heart. And basically, it unfolded the whole thing just by going into the sensations of the heart, and then simultaneously feeling the space around the back, and then feeling the experience in the heart, and then the whole story opened up what was actually happening there. And then it just unfolded and came back home, and release happened, and then he was back home in himself. So I want to give that very, very simple example that when there is an experience in our body, we speak about it and then we can go out with it. But working with trauma, and all you therapists and people working with trauma, you know that, to help people in the body and then hold that presence. And then it's really, the answer is right there. The body informs us
Mm.
immediately. And this person, he didn't feel supported in something, and it was kind of lingering. And then it came clear, like, oh, I did this thing and I wasn't supported, and I did support somebody else in that, but I didn't feel supported, even though people were there out of kindness to be with me, but I didn't feel that what I had given.
Yeah.
And to recognize that, and then it could all just dissolve and come home. And yeah, I think also one thing I would like to share is it it's simple. Life is complex. An iPhone is complex, and computers and all the kind of things are complex, even though it's said it makes your life simpler. But not always. Working with trauma, keep it simple.
Mm.
Simple. The simpler, the faster somebody can move through whatever they're experiencing in their bodies.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's like, all of our students, that's what, repeatedly bring it back to that, just present,
Mm,
like learn all the skills and the techniques and practice them. Like you learn a
yeah.
violin, you learn
Yes.
where to put your fingers and it's kind of cognitive, but then throw it all out and just be there with someone and
Yeah.
can use the tools when needed, but it's that simple, utter simple presence, just being with what's here, you
Yeah.
know, transforms what's here, by
Yeah.
itself, just by being with,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful.
And so it's also to kind of close a certain gap. We can be with our experience. But to me, what is I think the most important is to being presence.
Mm,
I am present. It's not I'm present with you.
yes.
That's automatically happens, but being presence, you kind of sink in. And then whoever's in front of you, uh, you're here. And that gives the space to experience what they need to experience. I can give an example of my own life. I was last year, I think, with Christmas or the year before, I can't remember. And I heard that this person was somewhere on vacation, and then on his way back home, he had to take a certain medicalization that he didn't want to take.
Mm,
And he had chosen, I don't do that. But at the border, they said, you cannot leave here without taking that medicalization. He said, I don't want to. So he had that whole discussion, la la la, the whole thing. And then he did take that medicalization after all. And he got very, very sick, very, very sick. So when I heard that story, he all got better, took some years. And I got so angry
mm,
because, growing up in Holland, I you learn about the Second World War. We were born and raised in Amsterdam, so a lot of people got killed there. And then after the big court cases, they came, as I see it, as with the highest law, and the highest law is you don't have to take anything in your body that you don't want to.
mm,
So I was like so enraged, and like, okay, Marlies, we're going home. We're gonna sit.
mm.
So, and I remember I just went here upstairs. I sat down, and I'd like, I'm gonna sit here till it's done. I don't care how long this takes, because I feel this rage is not only my rage, is rage of many of
Yeah,
us.
yes.
So yeah, so I sat down, and at first I got still as a presence, and I had like, okay, bring it on, bring it on. So I was present. I was not so much being with the
You,
rage.
yeah.
I was just here. I was kind of like hanging out, but hanging out like holding myself, to my chair and or cushion. And it's like my whole body was vibrating. I could feel screaming, everything.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I sat for about 2 hours and then phew, it was like deep peace. And I'm not saying everybody has to do this, but I want to give this extreme example that when you can sit with yourself when something comes up as presence, as that silent being that you are,
Mm,
then you know you are this still spaciousness in which everything happens and you just let it happen because you know it's not you. I know I was not that rage. Did
mm,
I feel it? Oh boy, I felt it. And that's the same way I feel for us to be with clients. You're completely here, you're in relationship, you're not going out for lunch somewhere, but you let them experience completely what they are experiencing and of course guiding also. But it's not you, it's not them. It's something that's moving through.
yeah.
And also with the trauma, to know that it's not you what's leaving, but it feels so you, or it feels
Yeah.
so me because it has been there and it's so sticky. So I feel that's also a very important ingredient in working with trauma to let that rip. And of course, sometimes you need to structure it. It's not always good to dive in all the way deep into your rage, and not everybody has the capability of relaxing back in the
Be that
midst of that.
too much too
Yeah,
soon again. It can be that
yes,
too soon, you know.
exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. And so that's a beautiful experience. I resonate, sitting with rage at different times, and that kind of disidentif and identifying like it's not us because as soon as the rage stopped and disappeared, if it was us, we would disappear too, but
yes,
don't
yes,
we're still here and
yeah,
so to be able to really develop that capacity over time to sit and feel something as
yeah,
and that's the kind of shift of identity that we spoke about earlier.
yeah,
Are being presence, not
yeah,
I am being present, but I am presence and being able to
yes,
rest as that and
yeah,
fully feel what you're feeling until there's
yeah,
almost no gap between
right,
between it anymore. The
yeah.
ray, close like I say, imagine two balls of mercury when or two little bits of water when
Okay, yeah, yeah,
they like plop and become one.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the experiencing and the presence, the rage and the presence are one thing. So there's like a
yeah,
unity between experience and experiencer, and to
yeah,
fully be able that's the only time we're fully experiencing something,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
to an absolute core and,
yeah,
just the amount of capacity building it takes to get
yeah,
to the point, of bite-sized.
yeah. Exactly that building of capacity, because when a client comes into your office and they don't have that capacity, they're not everybody's awake. So then it's really taking them by the hand and letting them feel bit by bit by bit to really feel fear or feel whatever that needs to be experienced with breaks. So it's all meeting where everybody is and where we are ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
exactly.
a very tender process. It's so tender and so human
Yeah, it
and
is
so precious. Yeah.
raw and vulnerable,
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So is there anything you wanted to close on before we finish, or are you happy with?
Um, Let me think for a moment. I would say, what it all comes down to is to be in your heart and grounded in your roots. and to be real, to be here, as I kind of started to dare to be here, to dare to be in relationship, to dare to be vulnerable. And that's to me an eternal process. That's a forever learning. I'm still learning myself. So, but also in the role as therapist, because I remember in the beginning, I was way more guarded. And then I had like, I'm not real here. I'm playing a role. And it's like, I don't want that. And in Hakomi, really, I learned in Hakomi, you learn really just to be yourself. And to me, that's the most beautiful beauty is to be in the heart, be myself. And through that, inviting whoever is in front of me to be themselves and be in their heart. And that's why we meet. There's no other, there's only one heart, many bodies, one heart, many, many, many bodies, one heart of being. And to meet there, I think yeah, that's all I want to say.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Thanks so much. So, um, thanks for joining us today. It's been beautiful to
yeah,
dialogue with you about all this stuff, and I've learned so
yeah,
much from you over the years as well. Not even through words, just through
yeah.
silence, you know.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
and so, thanks for joining us today, and we'll put all Marlise's information below. You can contact her if you'd like to work with her at some point, and
yeah.
um, thanks to all our listeners for coming on this journey with us, and thank you, Marlies, again for joining.
Yeah, and thank you, Matt, also for you that you, through your awakening and your experience, because you have a school, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, so I just so honor that in you, how you bring your experience in the world and help others so that it can spread everywhere, you know. That's how we bring change. That's the real change, grassroots,
yeah.
not from above down. No, here, below, everywhere. So I want to thank you for that. And yeah, thank you for having me here too. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yes.